Before we dive into this life-changing breakdown, I want to hear from you. If you were to lose everything tomorrow, your job, your home, and your status, what is the one core belief or relationship that would give you the strength to keep going? Share your why in the comments below. Finding purpose in the void, a masterclass on meaning. Imagine standing in a place where your name is replaced by a number tattooed on your skin, where your clothes are rags, and where your very existence is deemed worthless by those in power. Viktor Frankl, a world-renowned psychiatrist and neurologist, found himself in exactly this position when he was deported to the Nazi concentration camps during World War II. His seminal work, Man's Search for Meaning, serves as a profound exploration of the human psyche under the most extreme conditions imaginable. It is not merely a historical record of atrocity, but a timeless blueprint for finding light in the deepest darkness, and a guide to discovering purpose when all hope seems lost. Today, we take a deep dive into his revolutionary philosophy of logotherapy to understand how you can find a why so powerful that it allows you to bear almost any how that life throws your way. Part 1. Experiences in a concentration camp. Mental shock was the immediate reaction for those arriving at the gates of the camps, a psychological state Frankl categorizes as the first stage of a prisoner's mental reaction. He describes the delusion of reprieve, a common phenomenon where a condemned man, even in the moments before execution, clings to the irrational belief that he might be saved at the very last second. When this illusion finally shattered against the reality of the chimneys and the barbed wire, it was replaced by a cold, grim curiosity about whether one could survive the next hour or even the next minute. This curiosity acted as a buffer, a way for the mind to detach itself from the immediate horror and view the situation with a clinical, almost third-party perspective. Apathy eventually set in as a necessary internal shield against the constant surrounding horror and the relentless threat of death. This second stage of psychological reaction was characterized by an emotional numbness that allowed prisoners to focus solely on the primitive task of staying alive. The sight of suffering, which would normally provoke intense pity or disgust, eventually became a daily occurrence that elicited no reaction at all from the seasoned prisoner. This blunting of the emotions was a vital protective mechanism, as feeling too much would have led to a complete mental breakdown in an environment where tragedy was the only constant. Physical survival in the camps was dictated by the most basic of needs, turning the search for a piece of moldy bread or a pair of intact shoes into the entire universe for those trapped behind the wire. Frankl notes that the lack of sleep, the inadequate food, and the constant mental stress should have, by all medical logic, killed most of the prisoners within weeks. Yet he observed that the human body possesses an incredible, almost inexplicable capacity for endurance when the spirit is engaged in a battle for survival. The prisoners who lasted the longest were often not those with the largest muscles, but those who possessed a deep inner strength and a reason to live that transcended their physical suffering. Inner life became the ultimate sanctuary for those who sought to maintain their humanity amidst the degradation of the camp system. Frankl realized that even when physical freedom is completely stripped away, the last of the human freedoms remains untouchable: the ability to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances. He found that by retreating into his own mind, he could hold conversations with his wife, even though he did not know if she was still alive. This internal dialogue and the visualization of his loved ones provided a source of strength that the guards could never take away, proving that love is the highest and ultimate goal to which man can aspire. Suffering is like gas in a chamber. It fills the human soul and conscious mind completely, regardless of the amount or the objective severity. Even the smallest joys, like a beautiful sunset glimpsed through the bars of a transport train, or the brief kindness of a fellow prisoner, could trigger a profound sense of gratitude. Frankl emphasizes that suffering is relative, and the key to surviving it was not seeking to avoid it, but finding a way to integrate it into a larger framework of meaning. The prisoners who gave up were those who could no longer see any point in their suffering, who felt that their future was a void and their past was a graveyard. Art and humor were also present in the camps, acting as another layer of psychological defense against the bleakness of the environment. The prisoners would occasionally organize small cabaret shows or tell jokes to provide a few moments of escapade from the reality of their situation. Frankl himself encouraged a friend to develop a sense of humor, suggesting that they make a pact to tell at least one funny story every day. This was not a sign of madness, but a sophisticated tool for gaining distance and rising above the suffering, even if only for a few fleeting minutes. Nature provided a rare but potent source of spiritual nourishment, as prisoners would often stop their forced labor just to admire a particularly striking landscape. This appreciation for beauty, even in the midst of a hellscape, served as a reminder that there was still a world of order and aesthetic value outside the camp walls. It reinforced the idea that the human spirit cannot be entirely crushed as long as it can still recognize and respond to the beauty of the creation. Frankl recounts how he and his fellow inmates were once moved to tears by the sight of the mountains of Salzburg through the windows of a transport train, a moment of transcendence that defied their physical condition. Part 2. Logotherapy in a nutshell. Meaning is the primary motivational force in man, according to the principles of logotherapy, the school of psychology Frankl founded based on his experiences. Unlike Freud's will to pleasure or Adler's will to power, Frankl's system is built upon the will to meaning, the innate drive to find a purpose for one's existence. This meaning is not a general or abstract concept that can be applied to everyone. It is a specific, unique mission that demands to be fulfilled by the individual at a particular moment in time. Logotherapy focuses on the future, looking at the meanings to be fulfilled by the patient, rather than dwelling solely on the traumas of the past. Existential vacuum is the term Frankl uses to describe the modern feeling of boredom, emptiness, and lack of direction. When traditions and instincts no longer tell a person what they must do, and they no longer have a clear sense of what they should do, many people lose sight of what they actually want to do. This void is often filled with a hunger for power, money, or superficial pleasure, which serves as a temporary distraction but never truly satisfies the deep-seated need for purpose. Frankl argues that many of the psychological issues in modern society, from depression to addiction, are actually symptoms of this underlying existential vacuum. 3 distinct avenues exist for discovering meaning in our daily lives, and logotherapy helps individuals identify which one is most relevant to them. First, we find meaning by creating a work or doing a deed, the sense of accomplishment and contribution that comes from a career, a hobby, or a project. Second, we find it by experiencing something or encountering someone through the appreciation of goodness, truth, beauty, or the profound connection of love. The third avenue is the most challenging, finding meaning through the attitude we take toward unavoidable suffering, which Frankl calls the case for a tragic optimism. Responsibility is the very essence of human existence, and logotherapy places the burden of finding meaning squarely on the shoulders of the individual. Frankl suggests that we should live as if we were living for the second time and had acted as wrongly the first time as we are about to act now. This thought experiment forces a person to consider the long-term consequences of their actions and to take ownership of their choices. By recognizing our responsibility to life, we shift from being passive victims of our circumstances to being active participants in the creation of our own destiny. Tension is not something to be avoided, but rather a necessary component of mental health and personal growth. Logotherapy posits that a certain amount of new dynamics, the spiritual tension between what one has already achieved and what one still ought to accomplish, is essential for a fulfilling life. A completely tensionless state or a life of total equilibrium leads to stagnation and the existential vacuum. We need the call of a potential meaning to pull us forward, providing the necessary friction that allows us to move toward our highest potential.
Love is described by Frankl as the only way to truly understand another human being in the innermost core of their personality. No one can become fully aware of the very essence of another human being unless they love them. By the spiritual act of love, we are able to see the essential traits and features in the beloved person. And even more, we see that which is potential in them, which is not yet actualized, but yet ought to be actualized. This transformative power of love allows us to help the person we love to realize these potentialities by making them aware of what they can be and what they should become.
Suffering ceases to be suffering the moment it finds a meaning, such as the meaning of a sacrifice. Frankl illustrates this with the story of an elderly doctor who was inconsolable after the death of his wife. Frankl asked him what would have happened if he had died first and his wife had to survive him. The doctor realized that his survival was a way to spare her that immense pain. His suffering then took on a purpose. It was the price he paid for her peace. And while the pain didn't disappear, the despair did. Part 3. The case for a tragic optimism. Optimism in the face of tragedy is not about being happy-go-lucky or ignoring the reality of pain. It is about the capacity to say yes to life in spite of everything. Frankl calls this tragic optimism, which is an optimism in the face of the tragic triad: pain, guilt, and death. The goal is to turn suffering into a human achievement and accomplishment, to derive from guilt the opportunity to change oneself for the better, and to derive from life's transitoriness an incentive to take responsible action. This mindset requires a deliberate decision to find the potential for good even in the most dire of situations.
Hyperintention is a psychological phenomenon where the more we obsessively seek a specific result, like happiness or success, the more it eludes us. Frankl explains that happiness must ensue as a side effect of dedicating ourselves to a cause greater than ourselves or a person other than ourselves. If we make happiness the primary goal, we become too self-conscious, which paradoxically prevents the very state we are trying to achieve. The same applies to sleep or sexual performance. The harder one tries to force them, the more difficult they become to attain. Decisions made by the individual are the final arbiter of character, not the biological or environmental factors that surround them. Man is not a thing among things. Things are determined by each other, but man is ultimately self-determining. In the concentration camps, Frankl saw that some men acted like swine, while others acted like saints. The difference lay in their internal decision, not in their physical condition. We have the power to rise above our instincts and our upbringing, to choose who we want to be in any given moment. Transitoriness of life does not make existence meaningless. On the contrary, it makes it incredibly urgent and significant. Frankl argues that the only things that are truly past are those that have been saved into the past, where they are protected from vanishing. A life that has been used to help others, to create art, or to endure suffering with dignity remains stored in the history of the universe, where nothing and no one can take it away. Instead of looking at the stubble of a harvested field, we should look at the full granaries of our lives, the deeds done and the love experienced.
Guilt should not be a source of paralysis, but a catalyst for personal transformation and growth. Logotherapy encourages individuals to accept responsibility for their past mistakes and use that awareness to make better choices in the future. By acknowledging our shortcomings, we open the door to change and to the possibility of becoming a person who would not make those same mistakes again. The past cannot be changed, but our attitude toward it and the lessons we draw from it are entirely within our control. Death is the final boundary that gives life its shape and its unique value. If we were immortal, we could postpone every action and every decision indefinitely, and nothing would ever truly matter. Because our time is limited, every moment becomes an opportunity that will never return, and every choice we make carries the weight of eternity. Death does not negate the meaning of life. It provides the framework within which meaning must be found and fulfilled. Humanity is capable of both the greatest evils and the most profound virtues, often within the same individual.
Frankl reminds us that the person who invented the gas chambers is the same species as the person who entered them with their heads held high, whispering a prayer. This realization should not lead to cynicism, but to a heightened sense of responsibility for the choices we make and the kind of world we choose to create. We are the architects of our own character, and even in the most restricted of circumstances, we remain the masters of our souls.
Survival in the camps was often tied to having a task to complete in the future, a reason to stay alive that lay outside the self. Frankl helped his fellow prisoners by encouraging them to think about the people waiting for them at home, or the work they had yet to finish. One prisoner was a scientist who had a series of books to write. Another was a father whose child was waiting for him in a foreign country. These specific, concrete goals provided the why that allowed them to endure the how of the camp, proving that man is a being who can only live by looking into the future. Freedom is not just freedom from something, but freedom to something. The freedom to take responsibility for one's life. Frankl famously suggested that the Statue of Liberty on the East Coast should be supplemented by a Statue of Responsibility on the West Coast. Without responsibility, freedom degenerates into mere license or arbitrariness. To be truly free is to recognize the demands that life makes upon us and to respond to them with courage and integrity. Success follows the same logic as happiness. It cannot be pursued, it must ensue. Frankl advises that we should not aim at success. The more we aim at it and make it a target, the more we are going to miss it. Success, like happiness, happens as the unintended side effect of one's personal dedication to a cause greater than oneself, or as the byproduct of one's surrender to a person other than oneself. Listen to what your conscience commands you to do, and go on to carry it out to the best of your knowledge. Meaning is found in the here and now, in the specific tasks and challenges of the present moment. We don't need to find a grand, overarching purpose for the entire universe to live a meaningful life. Often, meaning is found in the smallest acts of service, the quiet endurance of a difficult day, or the simple act of being present for someone else. Life is not a problem to be solved, but a reality to be experienced, and a series of questions to be answered through our actions. Spirituality in logotherapy is not necessarily religious, though it can be. It refers to the noetic dimension of the human being, the part that is uniquely human. This spiritual core is the source of our values, our conscience, and our ability to transcend our physical and psychological limitations. Even those who do not believe in a higher power can find meaning through their commitment to truth, beauty, or the well-being of others. The will to meaning is a universal human drive that transcends cultural, religious, and social boundaries. Suffering can be a springboard for the deepest kind of personal growth and self-discovery. When we are no longer able to change a situation, such as an incurable disease or the loss of a loved one, we are challenged to change ourselves. This inner transformation is the highest achievement of the human spirit, turning a seemingly senseless tragedy into a testament to human dignity. Frankl's life and work are the ultimate proof that no matter how much is taken from us, we always retain the power to choose who we will become. Before we wrap up this journey into the depths of the human soul, I have a question for you. What is one why in your life right now that gives you the strength to keep pushing through your hardest days? Let us know in the comments below. Your story might be the spark someone else needs to hear today. If you found value in this deep dive into Viktor Frankl's wisdom, please like this video and share it with someone who might be searching for their own meaning. Don't forget to subscribe to the 15-minute library for more summaries that turn the world's greatest books into actionable life lessons. Your support helps us continue bringing these powerful insights to the global audience.